Finally, I'm moving to one of my favorite part of the images, to working with contrasts, and after that, straight away after that, we'll be working with colors, which I of course love. And I like to see the process, how the image change perspective over the time when we work with contrasts. In this case, I'm working with shadows and highlights and trying to set up the connection between shadows and highlights to give more perspective to the image. So push up the highlights and darken the shadows so the image will be much more dynamic. And to do this, I use curve adjustment layers. So let's create curve adjustment layers. I'm going to rename this into H, which is going to stand for the highlights. And then another one I'm going to create, and I'm going to rename this into S, which is going to stand for the shadows. And many people think, what's the best way to create mask for your contrast? You see, there's many different ways. You can do this through image, apply image. You can do this through channels, which I used to do, but I don't really think it's that good anymore. So I'm not really doing this through channels, but my favorite way of doing this is through the color range. So I'm going to select and choose color range. And why I like to do this so much, because it gives me just perfect control on the highlights. You see, we can select any color we want on the image. We could choose the blue, which mostly be on the background, cyan not much. I'm surprised that there's that little blue color on the background, but the other powerful thing, we can choose highlights, midtones, and shadows. So this is the most powerful, simple tool in Photoshop without wasting of your time. You can so simply choose your highlights. So I'm setting the range at maximum 255, and then I'm grabbing the slider for the fuzziness and going up till the point I will see this is my point where I want the highlights to be. So in this case, my highlights may be around 65, and I will stay with this. So then let's hit OK. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go up with my curve adjustment layer. And you can see how different this image is right now. The one thing is we might get in a little bit oversaturated when we do this, but actually in this case it looks quite good. But if it appears to you, feel free to change blending mode to luminosity, so you make sure that you're not affecting any color, but you're purely affecting the lights. So well, I'm really happy that where I got with the highlights over here, the mask looks like this. So it was I would say it was quite careful work, just to make sure that we're affecting only highlights and nothing more, because this mask is very conservative. As you can see, there is not so many things that we selected. If you want to make sure that you won't be making your image maybe a little bit noisy, not noisy, but if you not be improving the pores, you can always go to filter, blur, and blur out this mask, so the transitions between lights will be a little nicer. I want to see, it should be enough. Let me have a look. As you can see, I blurred it out, maybe a little more, because as you can see now we're improving every pore. So when we could blur out this, the transitions will be a little softened. That's quite high. I usually like to keep this harsh because I like how sharpened the image gets, but I feel for this image we should not push it more. So okay, this is the highlights, and usually I would actually invert it, just mask for the highlights, not in this case, because if I would invert, really huge area of the image would get dark. So I'm going to create another separate layer mask for the shadows. So select color range, but once again I'm not going to use for select shadows, but I'm going to work with highlights. This is something I do prefer, so I would just press invert, and I'm going to see where I want this to be. This is will be quite strong. I feel, but around this time around this point will be something I'm looking for. Let's have a look if this works for us. And I don't want to make this too dark though, so like it's quite strong. Once again, change to luminosity. I'll change to luminosity, but it's a little bit too much maybe for me. I'm really curious how it's going to look if I'm going to sort out the shadows in a little bit different way. Once again, curves. I'm going to press S1 as a shadows stands for 1. And I'm going to sort out the shadows in image and apply image in a little bit different way. I'm going to invert this. So the transitions for the shadows will not be that strong, as you can see. And I wonder if it actually could work a little better for this image. And this is really soft now. This was more, actually the first example is more dynamic, and I believe it actually works better. So I was right going this way. It's stronger, but it's way too strong though for me. So like this is for sure not where I want this to be. Would just apply maybe half of the effect around this level. So let's extend this. This will be our shadows. And let me put this together. I'm going to name this as a C, before, after. So yeah, this image got strongly darker, but I wouldn't be bothered because I will improve some of the blues probably later. I have some methods for it. The other thing for contrast, what I will do is I'm going to create another curve adjustment layer, and I'm going to name this as an eyes. Improve the brightness and just invert this layer. Going to invert this, and I'm going to add some of the highlights for the mother eyes. Flow a little higher, over 20, and now I will just softly paint over the eyes. Don't overdo this because it was going to look too fake. I'm going to decrease opacity probably. Let me see how the mask looks like. And I'm going to decrease opacity down to around 50, I believe would be enough. And this is something I think suits for this image. So this image stands out, it's really contrasty, though we did not finish yet. You see, every time when I work with my image, I often notice that I want to do more dash and burn in this area and this sort of stuff. Just few moves. This really would not leave me alone. Maybe a little bit more over here. Just that's how it always is, and especially when you record video, it would not be a problem if I would not record video, but if I record it is. Okay, so jump into the colors. I believe you might see some of the banding on the background, but don't worry about this. I will show you how you can easily solve banding issue at the end using a very simple trick before final touches. So now let's jump into working with tones. First of all, I'm going to open color balance layers. First going to be S, which is going to stand for shadow. And this time I'm going to change the blending mode to color, because in this case we don't want to affect the contrasts, but we want to affect only colors. And then I'm going to duplicate this, and the other one for highlights is going to stand for highlights. So, okay, now image, apply image. We have already inverted mask. Okay, and then I'm going to press Ctrl or Command, hit on this layer mask, and then go to highlights, layer mask, and Ctrl or Command and I to invert this. So this is my masks for the, let me turn this off. This is my masks for the colors. This will be for shadow colors, and this will be for highlight colors. I'm going to start with shadows, and I'm going to work on the blue background a little bit more, because the background is usually over here strongly affected by shadows. So I would go around this. A little bit of the cyan is the color that I'm more looking for. It's a little too strong though. I would go, so I will be very careful, -3, around 4, to get to the color I really want. I'm going to stay with this for now, and then let me go to highlights, and to opposite I'm just going to add a little tiny touch of opposite colors for this image. Okay, before, after. I'm going to reduce the opacity for this too. For sure it was too strong. Okay, around this, and I want to work a little bit more on the background. So I would go to selective color. I'm going to call this BG as background, and I want to it would be easy actually to work just with the blue color over here. We could increase the cyan a little bit more and just work in general with the colors to get to the point that you feel is suitable for this image. Though I want to resolve one major issue, so I'm going to go back with the settings, and what I'm going to do, you see this color near model is a little different than the color in the deep shadows. So this is an important issue that I need to fix over here using selective color. So I will go to select color range, and I'm going to choose sampled colors, and from sampled colors I will choose the color that stands near model. As you can see, that would be here, will be easier for me to choose. As you can see, near her, so this area will be strongly I believe it was inverted, so I don't want to invert. Okay, so we created mask in this way, and I will see how the mask looks like. I'm going to blur this out a little because it's give me this banding that I don't really like. And what I'm going to do, working with the blues now, just with this area over here. So I would adjust the color more into the rest of the image. That would be around this. Let me have a look. So you can see this part of the background got more bluish. So it's suit a little bit better just to the rest of this. So that would be working with colors for now. I'm going to put this to the group and name this as a T, like the tones. And one thing I would be afraid that maybe it's a little too saturated, maybe the model is a little too saturated. So what I would like to do here is working with vibrance a little bit, and I want to take down some vibrance from this image. But let me see if, because I want to make sure that I'm taking this actually from the model phase and vibrance preserving the natural skin colors. So I don't want to take down too much from the background, but yeah, that would be quite difficult just to take from the certain part, because just taking down from all of this. So what I'm going to do, I will try to create the mask just for the model, and let's go to color range, and I will see if we're able to get the mask. And yes, and it will be quite a perfect mask, I believe. I'm going to use this plus, and that would be it. So I will be just affecting the model phase by this simple trick. As you can see, get even more, and I will see how the mask is. We can actually blur this out a little to make smooth transitions on 12 pixels, and then okay. So this is working with the tones. This is where I'm getting, before, after. I really love how the image looks right now. We have not much left, just a few final steps. We have some of the banding that I don't like. One problem is actually the banding was also on the masks, so this might be the issue with solving this later, but I'm going to make sure it will be just looking alright. If not, I might just remove this background layer because I believe it's creating more banding, and I will sort out the background as a final steps. I will see in the next lesson, and we are jumping into final steps to make sure this image looks just perfect as we like it.